What is going on, everyone? Mike Kadlick here. Taylor Kyles there, back with another episode of Patriots Postgame, as the Patriots just played a competitive football game for the first time in what feels like a long time. They lose 24-21 to the still AFC East leading Buffalo Bills. We are powered today by Prize Picks, by Game Time, and by a new sponsor, Factor Meals. We will talk about them in a little while. But first, Taylor, let's just get it off our chest about the game, right? They finally play competitive. I think until there was some iffiness about the punting at midfield with 8 minutes left, I thought that they really bounced back from the nightmare that was last week's game against Arizona. I thought Mayo had this team ready to play once again a little bit, right? Like it felt like that early, and then everything kind of crumbled down them on the stretch, yet they still only lose the game by 3. So it's like they were right there, even with some coaching decisions and some execution nonsense. But overall, again, early on, 14-0 lead. It felt like after the Jacksonville game where they said that they were soft and then they came back and fought instead. And then there was the nonsense a couple weeks ago, and they did the same thing. They came back and fought after the Jets game. It was the first one in New York. They came back and won. And then this one, same thing. Last week, he puts his foot in his mouth, Gerard, blaming Alex Van Pelt. Then AVP comes out, calls a pretty good first quarter and a half or whatever. They go up 14. And then after that, the offense was pretty much a disaster. They still keep it close down the stretch and then lose 24-21. So we're going to go through it all. We'll go back and forth conversation. I have some notes, but I just kind of want to rip it up and talk about the game like we normally do here, Taylor. So I'll hand it over to you. Your initial thoughts on the game as the Patriots now sit here 3-12 with, which we'll talk about, now the number 2 overall pick in the 2024 NFL Draft.
We cannot undersell how competitive this game was, because I've been talking about it all week. You've been talking about it all week, how we did not see. We were hoping that there would be reverse jinx, and it kind of worked. Didn't work fully, but it just felt like one of those games where it's like, it feels like they're going to get blown out, but there are like some specks of hope that maybe they keep it competitive, but it just, we hadn't seen it, especially coming off the bye, so there was just so little faith. And I think, with my game keys, a lot of the things that I wanted to see, we saw, and they led to success. You unleashed Drake Maye. For the most part, do a solid job keeping Josh Allen in the pocket. And even when he broke it, most of the time the coverage was great on the back end. But then one of the most glaring things that I also mentioned was you got to contain the backfield for the Bills outside of just Josh Allen, and they couldn't do that. Now, I will say, of the reasons they lost this game, poorest run defense. Honestly, man, I'm at the point where I think the run defense is what it is. I felt this way for a while, especially with no Barmore. Like, you're just asking a lot of Eric Johnson, Jeremiah Farms, Daniel Ekuale, guys who at best are lower tier rotational players who can make something happen here and there if they are fresh throughout the game. But it's a lot to ask them to consistently hold up. And then obviously at the second level, like Sione Takitaki, still isn't really the player you expect him to be because he missed so much time this summer and this season. And then obviously we also got Christian Ellis, who has played admirably in coverage. I think next season you re-sign him and you try to make him just a coverage specialist and special teamer, because I don't think he's great against the run. But the run defense I can only get so upset with, because I really just don't think they have the guys to be competitive consistently. Now, it sucks when you see like Kyle Duggar missing a tackle, obviously. But then when I'm also seeing like, all right, surprise, surprise, it's like Daniel Ekuale or Jeremiah Farms getting uprooted. Devon Godchaux, I would have liked to see him be more competitive, maybe close off the back end of that so the lane wasn't quite as big. But like, I just don't think this is a good run defense. I don't know exactly how you fix it, because it's a lot of the time it's the same people. So I touched on that, not going to harp on it too much. Now, the turnovers were the difference maker in this game. And the thing is, it's not even like this random, oh my gosh, they turned it over, what happened? The fumbles have been an issue for weeks. I'm talking like before the bye. I'm talking before the bye. It's been like they put the ball on the ground almost every single week. But like I tweeted, they've been flirting with disaster. They've recovered pretty much every fumble they've had. They've had at least one in every game. I think in the past like 6 or 7 weeks, it's been a constant problem, but it hadn't been since the strip sack of Drake Maye in Miami that we actually saw them lose it. Now, like, all the chickens came home to roost, where actually you had a couple fumbles that didn't go the other way, where Antonio Gibson fumbled one. I think, was it Hooper? Somebody that fumbled another one?
Maybe Antonio Gibson up the middle.
It was Gibson. I think maybe it was Maye also at some point fumbled. I think there were 4 that they got pinned with. But then obviously Ramondre Stevenson puts it on the ground and loses it. Then there's the more open to criticizing the play because you are throwing behind the line of scrimmage when you're backed up. I get it. But also when you have Dre Jacobs missing the key block that would have gotten Ramondre Stevenson blown up. And then Stevenson doesn't even catch the ball. It bounces off his hands, which is actually something we saw happen in one of Drake's first starts, but the ball, I think, fell out of bounds and it didn't happen. But it's just like, these are things we've seen happen before that all came and just flooded back. And Van Pelt has said every week, we're focusing on turnovers. We're trying to protect the ball. He was saying that even in the games where they weren't turning the ball over. I think there was like one, to be fair. But they were still, or when they were fluky turnovers, he was still saying, we want to be better. And I think the interception with Austin Hooper, I'd like to hear if Kendrick Bourne takes any responsibility, because they seemed like they were in the same area and Hooper's route was affected by where Bourne was. I don't even think there was anything wrong with the throw from Drake. At first, it looked like a very rare bad decision. But then on replay, I'm like, this looked funky. I think he was trying to throw with anticipation because he was under pressure. So the interceptions, it feels like every week, are just some random bullshit, or like something less so in the other times. It's always like a little thing that somebody does wrong ends up in a literal disaster scenario. But it's the turnovers for me that really cost in this one. And then some of the decisions, like we've talked about it. When you're at your own like area around midfield and you're playing the Bills and you're the Patriots, I don't really care if you go for it, to be honest. I would appreciate a little more aggression. And we've talked about this. We saw it at times like with the punt, for example, the fake punt with Del Pettis.
Yeah.
Frankly, I think that was a response to the look they got from the Bills. I don't even think that was actually a call they made. I think it was just in the game plan. Because a lot of the time that's what happens, where sometimes you'll see teams fake it in a situation that doesn't make any sense. And you're like, what the hell were they thinking? And usually that happens because someone didn't kill the fake that they had run in preparation that week. But you saw like some flashes of aggressiveness, but then there's so many 4th and 1s that they don't go for, or 4th downs near midfield, where it's like, you're playing with house money. Go for it. I don't understand. Like again, the screen from Alex Van Pelt, the runs on the end of the drive when they needed to score, and you're like, why are you running? You don't have time to do this because it took you too long to actually punch in the end zone when you were in scoring territory. So I think the questionable calls are a significant factor, because I think it could have put the team in more positions to be successful. But the turnovers were obviously the killer in this one. And then obviously the explosive run to James Cook. But as Mayo likes to say, if you take that one out, whatever. But and also, I can't even make this out to be some quality potential win for the Patriots, because again, I don't want to undermine what they did today, because again, we thought they were going to get blown out.
Sure.
If the Bills ran the ball 3 times with the running backs in the first half after the James Cook explosive touchdown run, in total, but even after you have that big run, you don't lean on the ground game. But even when Josh Allen got hurt, and then they have 13 penalties, the Bills. I'm sorry, it's really hard for me to look at this game and be like, oh, this would have been a convincing Patriots win. Now, if they'd won, you really can't complain about it either way. I would have had that small caveat. But when you lose, and you lose because you made some really bad mistakes and couldn't capitalize on the Bills basically trying to hand you a win, I don't feel as good about this as I did in the first half, where I'm like, okay, if they win, this is huge for Gerard Mayo. This is one where I think you're still saying, fundamentally, it seems like there are too many issues with this team, and the coaching staff lacks awareness in certain situations, or doesn't make the right calls in certain situations. So for me, when I walk away from this, the run defense is obviously a huge part of it, because you couldn't get off the field as quickly as you needed to at times. But really, the turnovers and the coaching decisions I look at and say, man, that cost you what would have been the best win of the Gerard Mayo era, which is obviously extremely disappointing.
100%. Charles Davis shared that on the broadcast. They talked to Mayo, and he was mentioning just how important this would be, and it would kind of turn the tide for the remainder of their season. Now, as far as his job security goes and things of that nature, there was some report, and Giardi had it in BSJ, and Greg and all those guys sort of said that he's safe until he's not, where if it turns into disaster these next 3 weeks, then things might change. Even though there were so many mistakes, you still only lost to the Bills by 3 here, and you played competitive for most of the first half. And so I think he's still going to be fine right now. And I don't necessarily disagree with that. I think, like I said earlier, he had them ready to play in this game, at least early on. Now, the mistakes, you talk about it, you look at it, and I tabbed it out, and I didn't include anything after the Ramondre Stevenson's fumble for a touchdown for the Bills. But between taking a 14-0 lead and that return touchdown, these are their offensive drives. 3 plays, 9 yards, punt. 10 plays, 33 yards, punt. 3 plays, 56 yards, end of half. Then the second half is 2 plays, 9 yards, fumble. 8 plays, 54 yards, interception. 2 plays, negative 10 yards, fumble return for a touchdown. So after some promising stuff, it turns into, a nightmare. And Maye has now thrown 7 interceptions in each of the an interception in each of the last 7 weeks. And, a lot of them aren't his fault. Even today, it looked like there was just some sort of miscommunication, and it's not like he just threw it right into somebody's chest. He kind of put it out to nobody, and, Teron Johnson comes under it. And then you have this Ramondre Stevenson stat from Andrew Callahan. He's the only NFL running back with 7 fumbles in a season since 2020, and he's the 4th since 2010.
How did Andrew find that stat? That's a good one. That was like something we used to pull up when I was at NFL Network.
Yeah, very an impressive stat pull from Andrew Callahan and a very bad stat for Ramondre Stevenson, where he has essentially two costly turnovers, sort of his fault on the second one. Obviously, the fumble is its own thing. He has 60 rushing yards on 12 carries. He has the touchdown, loses the fumble, and you go from there. And so, not great, but I think I thought they ran the ball hard. You look at their stats. I mean, Ramondre did have 12 yards of carry, 5 yards of carry on his 12 carries. So there's just it's the 2 steps forward, 1 step forward, 2 steps back kind of thing that just keeps killing them. And now here you are at 3-12. So,
and I want to give them credit. I wouldn't even say they took 2 steps back. Okay. I would say this was like 1, because I think, again, like the interception in the red zone is really tough.
Yeah.
And I think the play calling, it was really just like 3 or 4 decisions I feel like really made the difference. Because early on, like when they did, so there was the 4th and 5 when they were, I think, at their 35, they don't go for it. Mm-hmm. I didn't love that, because I'm like, hey, just be aggressive, like come out full force. But it's like, all right, it's whatever. Then you don't go for it on 4th and 1 on your side of the field still. But that was after the fake punt. But I'm thinking, okay, if that was a call made because it was a default,
yeah,
I kind of tweeted like, I don't get why you're doing this, but I'm like, all right, I get it. I just don't like it.
They also the fake punt, the play before the fake punt, they had 3rd and 1, and it was just like a nonsense gun handoff running up the middle that they got stuffed, and I was like,
it was so bad. The immediate penetration.
I know it's the play call bad, the execution bad, right? And so then I'm like, what are we doing? And then they get they fake punt. I'm like, oh, okay, that was a little ballsy. They probably. They're talking it out on the sideline, so Van Pelt knows that they're going to at least try a fake punt here, so he can be a little bit more conservative and not try and do something extravagant out of the ordinary. So that happens there. But then this is the one where I go 2 steps back from the 1 step forward, because it's I want to pull out my tweet on it, because I put it out there a little bit more than I can, or better than I can think of right now, but like. He never gets away from anything scot-free, Gerard Mayo, where he has a good day, right? They fight. Things are going well. And then, like he did at that press conference a couple months ago, he goes, oh, yeah, Stacey told me to say all this stuff. Or he's, last week was a nightmare, and then he throws AVP under the bus. It's like, you're playing so competitive, and this is the big one here. You're playing so competitive, and then there's 8 minutes left. You're down 2 scores. And you punt the football on what was 4th and 6.
Yeah.
And it's like,
was that the one late? Wasn't that 4th? And let me see. I got to go back in the play.
I want to say it was 4th and 6, because it was right after Maye missed Henry on the out route.
Yeah, no, you're right. It was 4th and 5. 4th and 5.
And so it's like you're down 2 scores. You can't stop a nosebleed defensively through the run game. Like you said, James Cook's going for 5+ yards a pop, or 10 yards a carry. For the game. I keep messing those numbers up, but you got to factor in that.
I also just realized I had, ESPN will flip the way that they do their play-by-play.
Yeah.
During and after the game. I had it backwards because I didn't realize they flipped it. So I'm sorry if I said something earlier that was supposed to be backwards. My bad. That's so wrong.
Yeah, I know what you mean. When the game finishes, it goes from beginning to end instead of as it's going. But yeah, so no. But
sorry
4th and 6, 8 minutes left, and it's like, at that point in the game, you're playing so well. Everyone in across the league is talking about, wow, the Patriots are playing the Bills competitive and they're keeping it tight. And could the Bills lose here? Blah blah blah. And then you surrender. You look at the surrender index that you tweeted. You have to go for that. That was a soft call, in my opinion. This was the one thing where it was like he never gets away scot-free. You play hard, you play tough, things are turning your way, and then you punt at midfield. And it was just so soft. And I was like, why? Like, why not just go for it? This one really upset me. And I think I saw someone tweet it. I don't know if I would go this far with it, but these are the decisions that are going to sit in the back of Kraft's head when they have to ultimately make a decision at the end of the season. Like, I hated it, Taylor. I thought it was awful. I thought it was soft. He talks about soft football players. I thought this was a soft coaching decision.
And I like to acknowledge that there are different philosophical approaches. Like, as much as we want to get on Gerard Mayo and everyone else does, Bill Belichick was extremely conservative after Tom Brady left. We saw it year after year after year. And I feel like people forgot, but they were complaining about it all the time. We talked about, like, why is Bill being aggressive?
Yep.
Does he not trust Mac? Does he not trust the offense? What's going on? So I just want to acknowledge, everyone says this is like a fireable offense. It's not. I don't think anything they did today was so bad that you're saying, oh, God, you got to get them out of here. I think these are things where you can maybe add consultants. Like, whoever, if it's a different person than Evan Rothstein or whatever, like, you can get advice and talk to other coaches and, like, change your philosophy. Those things, I'm not going to bury them on in year one. But that said, I thought the decision to punt, I think it was the worst punt decision they've made this season. And it turns out it was one of, like, the historically worst punting decisions made in, like, the past decade or two.
Yeah.
That one, I'm like, hell yeah. This doesn't make any sense, because what's your justification? Oh, we're going to stop them, maybe 3 and out, get the ball back. You can't stop the run. If Joe Brady called the game, I think the way they should have, frankly, and just dare the Patriots to stop the run and just have no regard or respect for their defense in that area, the Patriots don't get the ball back with any time, I think, to double score. So they didn't get the logic there. It's like, you didn't show you could stop the run. If they don't throw, what do you think is going to happen? And they're still going to milk time off the clock. So, yeah, I agree. That was one of the worst coaching decisions I've seen from them in the game this season. Like, I think by far. And then I think it was exacerbated by the fact that Alex Van Pelt decided to run on the drive when they needed the score. Like, sometimes I get it. If you literally just need like a 3rd and 1 and you're trying to drive and you've got time, I don't really care. I think those are times where people get a little too upset about the run, where sometimes you really can just catch a defense off guard. If they're playing like rushing really far upfield and they're dropping, that's where I don't mind to draw a play or something to kind of get a chunk that you might not get as easily on a pass. But yeah, I did not like the way they handled the end of this game. The red zone stuff was kind of different because I think they were trying to punch it in. Just like pop drops it. Like, there's just things that kind of get in the way. But yeah, I did not like that end of half game management at all. Like, Alex Van Pelt, again, the bubble screen. Some of the other stuff, he can get better, and they were bad, but I don't think they cost the game. I think not punting was one of the direct decisions that ultimately cost them. And they got to get better with that. Again, I really hope that this offseason, Gerard Mayo takes a long, hard look in the mirror and fixes this. Because you say, oh, you don't want to make repeat mistakes. You don't want to, you want to learn what happens in other games. That's what Gerard said. Hey, we lost. We're going to learn from this game. Well, bro, like, maybe they haven't had this exact situation, but if it ever comes up again and they punt, then it's going to be doubly worse. And maybe not fireable. Like, I don't think single in-game decisions outside of the playoffs or the playoff race should be the reason that you fire a coach necessarily. But if it does happen again, you're like, oof, my dude, you sound like a hypocrite making these same critical mistakes. And we've seen ones that were kind of similar that did cost them points. But again, this just feels like the most egregious.
Yeah, definitely. Egregious and something there. Again, it's not fireable. I don't mean it that way. And I know I know.
I more mean like from what I've seen in comments.
Totally. That's what, and I know that you know that. I'm not saying that. Blah 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 blah. But like, I don't think it's that. But I do think it's the ones where, when you bring everything together and all of the stuff that's happened, it's like, not fire, but hey, we need to fix this. How are you going to fix this for next season, type of thing. So we have post-game comments trickling in on Twitter. We'll get to some of those. Drake Maye actually said, this is transcribed from Brian Hines from Drake Maye. Conversation about our coaching staff. I think it's some BS, to be quite honest. Coach Mayo, we got his back. He coaches us hard. He wants to win. We all want to win. So continues to say the right thing.
Maybe get better players and a couple more coaching staff additions, and I think they could be in good shape for next season.
Exactly. Maye continues to say the right things, continues to make the right plays for the most part, falls off a little bit in the second half, I think. I'm going to get to some of my Drake Maye nitpicks. We'll talk about the defense. We'll talk about some of the clock management, game management, things of that nature at the end of the game. But first, let's listen to our friends over at Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all, and all you got to do is pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash on Prize Picks right now. Make the holidays bigger and better with Prize Picks. You can win up to 1,000 times your cash, like I said, and they have 2 free picks in December. They're giving away $30+ million in rewards during Pickmas. Taylor, I didn't check our prize picks lineup we made pregame, but I think it might have hit.
Did
Demario,
it?
Demario Douglas went less. He was 34.5, and he had 33 yards. Amari Cooper,
the touchdown would have gotten him.
Yeah, Amari Cooper did nothing. He had 1 for 10 yards. Taylor's leaving the screen. Our prize picks lineup on the pregame show was Amari Cooper to have less than 34.5 receiving yards, which he did. And we picked Pop Douglas to have more than 34.5. He missed it by 1.5 yards. So we're going to go back to the drawing board. I will tweet out my Sunday Night Football lineup right now, actually, because Sunday Night Football is starting in a few minutes. And you will see if we can win another one. But if you want to get in on the action with us here, head over to Prize Picks, create an account, use code CLNS, and you will get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app, use code CLNS, you get $50 instantly after you play that first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. All right, let's talk about Drake Maye a little bit more. We'll go a little bit more in depth. He comes out flying, 22-26, 260 passing yards, the 31 rushing touchdowns. They start running the ball with him a little bit more. Zone reads, QB sneaks, things of that nature. The interception, a 7th in his last 7 games. Maybe more, but he's thrown one in 7 straight games. And I thought, again, he started really hot. The throw to Kayshon Boutte down the sideline for the touchdown was awesome. Probably his best throw, second best throw of his career. He's had a couple of those now. He had the long one to Boutte in his first start. He had the one to Kendrick Bourne last week. Then he follows it up this week, same thing, Boutte, touchdown. And he's got a real feel for that right sideline, man, throwing those ones in the bucket down that sideline. So good stuff from Maye.
Against the Jags, too, down the left sideline. It was from like a tighter split, but there was that one, too. Mm-hmm.
Yep, that's right. So he's got that feel. He's clearly can, throw in the snow, something at least the cold, something I don't think Mac Jones was really able to do. I thought that was one of my big knocks.
Shot. That's mean.
Yeah, sorry. Did they win? No, they lost today. They lost.
The Patriots.
No, the Raiders won and helped out the Patriots. So thank you, Mac Jones. But again, Maye looks good. But again, I thought, Taylor, and this is me being super nitpicky. I'll give my thoughts on Maye, and then I'll kick it to you to kind of go on your diatribe about him. But an iffy second half. Like, I thought that he was up and down. The clock management, delay a game. There was the other one where it was almost a delay a game on that same drive down the stretch, and they end up getting the encroachment from the Bills' defensive lineman, which worked out in their favor. But the play before they decided to punt on the with 8:33 left, he sailed Hunter Henry out on the sideline, just missed him. Thought that was a throw he could have made. There was the one across the middle to Boutte, where Boutte was open and Maye read it right, put it in the right spot, but just threw it a little bit too short. He had the drop snap on that last drive, which, again, they end up scoring, so it's okay, but it still takes another play off the drive, some more time off the clock. So I just thought there was some plays to be made from Drake Maye in the second half. And my caveat on that is he's a rookie. So we already are starting to hold him to higher standards, at least I am, because of how well he's played. So, like, these are things I would nitpick from a 5-year pro. And guys miss throws, guys miss plays, things like that. So overall, I thought it was a great game from him. But also, if he was a little bit more consistent in the second half, made a couple more plays, I think they might have been even in a better spot than losing by 3 points.
I don't think you're wrong. And I'm going to hold off like aggressive criticism of Maye until tomorrow where I can kind of see. Because I know he said he thought he scrambled too much early on. Didn't seem like that to me. But again, I was only seeing the broadcast angle. It did seem like his most streaky game accuracy-wise, maybe since his first start, to be honest. It was the first time where I'm like, whoa, you're missing some throws you typically make. Now, to be fair, and I think also this was with the fumbled snap, I think it was just the weather. Because he said that he's not really used to playing in the cold. He said the coldest is like the 20s or maybe in the teens. And when you look at, honestly, all of the top quarterback picks, all of them are from places that typically have good weather. UNC, LSU, USC. So it's not like any of these quarterbacks are necessarily well-versed in cold weather games. I know Maye said that, like, there have been times in North Carolina where it can get cold. Yeah. I don't think it's Buffalo cold. And it's going to be New England. It's not going to be New England cold either. So that's not something I want to absolve. Because you got to play in Foxborough, my dog. Like, if you're going to be playing playoff football, you got to get used to throwing in cold weather. But it was his first long sleeve game, so really not holding that against him too much. outside of that, I was impressed, man.
Yeah.
He was throwing with the anticipation to his tight ends. He was making the downfield throws. You saw the increased aggressiveness. Felt like he continued to take what the defense gave him. Really, decision-making wise, I don't think I had a ton of glaring issues. Like even the Hooper interception, I thought that maybe he forced that. But then looking at it again, based on the route distribution, I'm like, all right, if Bourne doesn't run into him, I think Hooper ends up bodying the safety, even though he did kind of stare at Hooper. I don't think it really would have mattered because, again, that's a big body if the ball and the play is going how it's designed. So I like Drake Maye's performance. Only 4 incompletions, and I feel like all 4 of those you can remember in your head. Like there's the one to Booty over the middle that you're disappointed in. One of the incompletions was the one to Demario Douglas. Like, this is not a game where I'm going to nitpick Drake Maye. Like the throw to Ramondre Stevenson, I saw somebody say it hit him in the head. It bounced off his hands, literally bounced off his hands. So that's not on Drake Maye. I think maybe he did fumble after a sack, maybe, because I know he was credited with a fumble, but I didn't notice it live. But for the most part, I continue to be impressed with Drake Maye. I was hoping, and the reason you put this in prime time is because you want to see Drake Maye versus Josh Allen. What are 2 of the most big-armed, elusive quarterbacks in the NFL going to look like when they're going head-to-head? Obviously, the turnover streak was damn brutal, but you still had Drake Maye going toe-to-toe with Josh Allen. Obviously, gets out to the strong start early. But then even when everything goes bad, you have the red zone drive that takes 13, 16 plays or something like that, and he punches it in against all odds. Like, that was what you wanted to see from this matchup. That was really cool. But it'll be a lot more fun when these games come up if the Patriots are able to add some more talent. Because at the end of the day, with the run defense, I think that's the problem. With the receivers, it's just like get some more explosive players so you don't have to put together these 10-play drives every single time you need a score. But yeah, overall, I was really impressed with what Drake Maye did today. I know he wasn't perfect, but there wasn't a whole lot that I'm saying. You know, at times I've been like, even for a rookie, like the Sealer strip sack, I'm like, my dog, no. That's not acceptable. I don't care how long you've been in the league. You can't be doing that. But everything else, I was like, yeah, no, this is another really good step for Drake Maye.
So question on something we started to talk about before we even went live, and that was...
Oh, actually, I'm sorry. One more thing about Maye. He did take a bad sack on a scramble. He only lost a yard. He converted on the next play, but that was probably the only other play where I was like, that was bad IQ. I'm sorry. I wanted to...
No, you're good. I'm glad you said it. But as far as the fumble by Ramondre Stevenson that you mentioned, it hits him in the hands. Not the fumble, the one where it goes off his hands and into the end zone for a touchdown. Where Maye, you said it. You said somebody thought it hit him in the helmet. It didn't. It did hit him in the hands. I had mentioned before the show about being a quarterback coaching point where make sure you're throwing the ball forward. Now, I don't know if that's something in the Patriots system, but there could be something to be said where, yes, you call the play back there, which probably isn't smart in case the ball hits the ground, but also it's a swing pass. Either take your drop right to make sure Ramondre is going forward so you don't even put yourself in that situation. Like, do you think that's a thing? Do you think I'm thinking too much into that? I feel like there should be something there where, yes, we're trying to get the ball to you in space really fast, so there's a chance it's a lateral. But at the end of the day, you still want to try and get that guy going forward. So if it does hit the ground, it is an incomplete pass and not a fumble.
I don't think you're crazy for that, to be honest. I know Coach Chaos mentioned that Maye maybe could have just thrown it in the dirt once he saw that the cup line didn't work. I still think that would have been a very split-second decision for him to make, so I don't want to put too much on him there. But we could definitely ask this week. I think that's a fair question of, was it supposed to be further in front so you don't risk the possibility of a fumble, even though, again, you had glaring mistakes from the blocking and from Ramondre. That obviously is the reason that the play didn't work. But yeah, I don't think that's a crazy point, and I would be very curious to hear what Drake, Ramondre, or Alex Mantel have to say about that.
I'm curious too, because I want to know if it's depending on the down and distance and where you are. Like it could have been like putting blame more so on the play call, where you don't want to do that because you're backed up. Putting it on the execution from Drake because don't throw the football there. Try and make sure you're throwing the ball forward, or from Ramondre from just straight up dropping the football, knowing that it's a critical situation because it's going backwards and it could be a fumble in that situation. But again, overall stuff from Drake Maye, it's nitpicky. But I do want to talk about that final drive you just mentioned, actually. And I do have the stats up here from Alex Barth, tweeted it out, where they go down there and they run 9 plays. And they finally get in the end zone, but they do so with 1:13 left on the clock. They had the ball, 1st and goal, from the 8, with 2 minutes and 26 seconds left. Mm-hmm. And they let an entire minute go by with 9 plays and finally get in 1:33. or with a minute 33 left. And so I do like your point that you just mentioned when we're talking about Drake Maye, where there's fight, they don't give up, backs against the wall type of deal where you miss a throw, pop drops one, pass interference, and it's like you just keep going, and you finally get in. And it's like, okay, that's good stuff, because some guys could wilter after that long and throw a pick, turnover on downs, things of that nature. But no, they finally get themselves in the end zone. But whether it's coaching, whether it's play calling, whether it's execution from your wide receivers, quarterback, offensive lineman, what have you, they took way too much time off the clock and didn't give them a chance to score, get the ball back, and realistically give them a chance to win the game at the end.
And I'll say this. Like, I'm looking at the plays. I was like, did they run? I felt like there was one mixed in, and there was. It was a 4-yard loss where Gibson got, honestly, that was a crazy play from Jordan Phillips, first off.
Yeah.
He shot himself out of a cannon and hit Antonio Gibson almost right as he got the ball. You could definitely debate the play call, but it was like 1st and goal from the 4. They had run one in earlier. I don't despise it if you really think it's going to work, but every other play in the red zone, they passed. Mm-hmm. So it's not like they were messing around and just not caring about the clock. I think a lot of it was just they couldn't punch it in. And that's really the end of the day. Like, you had the pass interference calls. You have, it felt like there were a couple times where they came really close to scoring a touchdown and didn't. So again, I'll go back and watch, but I just think that one was like the Bills were playing pretty good red zone defense, and they made it really tough. And again, I think the
just was like a boxing match
inside the 10-yard line. It was
right.
Their first play after the encroachment was inside the 5. That's just insane. You never expect that you're going to waste an entire minute trying to punch it in from that one. So for now, I don't want to be too, backing off the coaching staff, but that's one where I'm just like, hey, they couldn't punch it in, and that's what happened. So, and I think they were all incompletions too. Like, incomplete. Yeah, they were just the only completion before the touchdown was the one to Demario Douglas, and that one was obviously overturned. So yeah, I'm not terribly upset with that. I'm more upset with them deciding to punt and putting themselves in a position where they had to score faster.
Yep. All right, we'll finish up Drake Maye with this. I want to pull up Drake's answer when I mentioned that with him calling the calls for his coaching staff BS. So I just pulled it up from Twitter. So I want to kind of actually listen to it, hear what he has to say. So let's take a listen. Okay. If it'll work.
Stuff like that, I think it's some BS, to be quite honest. Coach Mayo, those guys. Coach Mayo's, we got his back, and he's coached us hard. He wants to win. We all want to win. We're all frustrated. AVP's been, I feel calling great past weeks. We're just plays away, and especially me turning the ball over. I think it's just a testament to these guys that keep fighting. We keep fighting. We're not going to make the playoffs. We're out of the race, and these guys keep coming in, and I'm frustrated when we don't score, and they got energy at practice, and they got energy coming to the game, and we want to win. There's guys not even playing that are yelling on the sidelines and wanting to win. So I think we're building something good, building something that feels right here, and I'm proud to be a Patriot.
So I like the answer, and it feels genuine to me. I feel like he's actually behind them, where there are times where guys are, quarterback speak will say the right thing, and they have to, stand behind their coach and yada, yada, yada. But that feels like this whole losing the locker room aspect of this entire job security situation that we've talked about. He still has yet to lose the locker room. I think his answer proves it, but I also think the way they came out today proves it in general. So I like the answer. And again, I don't see them moving on right now.
I agree. I don't think so either. I firmly do believe that everyone's behind Gerard Mayo, but I just actually tweeted it from tweeting Brian's quote of it saying he thinks it's BS. Understand that Drake Maye was known for his loyalty coming out of college. Yeah. He stayed at UNC, had a ton of offers coming out. He could have gone anywhere. His NIL offers were like through the roof. I know that there was a story about how when he got his NIL deal at UNC, he said he wouldn't accept it unless his offensive lineman could also benefit. You are never going to hear Drake Maye throw anybody under the bus. I just want to make that very clear. When he said BS, I think he was actually pissed off. I don't think that was him just saying it. I think he really is annoyed by the fact that Gerard Mayo and Alex Van Pelt, we can have our perceptions on the outside. I think they do a very good job of handling the players on a person-to-person level. The actual coaching obviously needs to improve, and that is the most important part. But I don't think we're going to see anybody in this locker room start talking shit about their coaches, because I really do think they have a lot of respect and reverence for them. Hunter Henry said so many times, I think he said today as well, I love playing for Gerard. I love playing for AVP. So that's what that is. Again, I don't think they're being disingenuous. I think this locker room is fully behind them, but you ain't going to hear Drake Maye be like, Mayo's fine. Well, like, no, he is going to
Right.
defend that man unless he steps away out of line, which, Mayo can put his foot in his mouth, but I think person to person level, he does very well.
Yep, I'm with you. All right, we're going to talk about the defense. We'll wrap up some of these other coaching questions. We will also talk about the Patriots having the number 2 overall pick as things stand right now in next year's draft. But first, we got to hear from our friends at Game Time. Game Time is focused on togetherness this holiday season, and that means when you bring people together at live events, the experience is that much better. It's also the perfect holiday gift is tickets through the Game Time app. They now have a feature called Game Time Picks, and it makes getting tickets to live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. They have Game Time Picks. They also have the all-in pricing feature. I think that is my favorite feature from the Game Time app because you don't go and check out and get a bunch of nonsense added to your bill. You see exactly what that seat is going to cost you, exactly what is going to come out of your bank account, and you got to just toggle on the all-in feature to check that out. They also have seat views, gives you a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. Again, not all ticketing partners have that, but Game Time does, so you can see exactly where you're going to sit. They also have the lowest price guarantee, and Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference if they don't. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets today with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS. You get $20 off that first purchase. Download Game Time today. What time is it, Taylor?
Game time.
Good answer. It's game time. It's also time to talk about the Patriots defense. We focus a lot on the offense, rightfully so. You got Drake Maye. You got some coaching issues, some coaching questions, some coaching decision questions. But the defense is another thing here with the Patriots. So I just want to put the score up. There we go. Good news. They hold the Bills under 30 points for the first time since October. They only scored 24 points, which I didn't think was possible. Again, I was going through to find that number.
What was my score prediction? What was it, 38-20?
38-17? 38-20?
I thought they were going to get past 20 points. I thought they were going to score like 2 touchdowns and kick a bunch of field goals. I think I had 20, so I was close.
Okay, not bad. But the Bills score under 30. Marte Mapu looks pretty good running around. Now, we had that crazy gaff in the end zone where it's like, dude, just go down. That was tough stuff. But they run the long one.
It was such an on-brand Marte Mapu game. We'll talk about it more, but it was so on-brand.
Yep. Yeah, it really was. They put out the Longhorn package there. Brendan Schooler's playing a little spy there. Jonathan Jones looks pretty good in the end zone. Christian Gonzalez does his thing. You didn't hear about Christian Gonzalez at all today, and that's always a good thing for the top cornerbacks. But they get gashed on the ground. Patriots run defense still cannot keep up. Here are the numbers as they were. The Bills ran for 172 yards on 28 carries, a rushing touchdown from James Cook, 6.1 average yards per attempt from the 4 rushers. James Cook, the long one, 100 yards, 11 carries, 9.1 yards per attempt, and he had the long of 46 that went for a score. So, wrapping it all up, putting a bow on it, what's up with the defense? What happened? What are your thoughts on that side of the football from today?
I was so impressed with the coverage, man. So impressed. I didn't we talked about. You're probably not keeping Josh Allen in the pocket the whole game. It's just too much to ask of really any defensive front, but especially one that's this undermanned. And when he did get out, I thought, we had like one scramble. I think he had one throw for a conversion where Mapu looked like he may have come off his receiver when he probably should have just stayed in coverage. Instead, he tried to get after Josh Allen. But coverage, like you talked about it, Marte Mapu, it was frustrating when he brought it out, obviously, because it feels like sometimes, and then again with the scramble conversion, sometimes it feels like his awareness just is not there. But then I've been talking about it. I think he's a playmaker and he makes some mistakes, but I'm like, yeah, but you still see him get his hand on a ball at least once a game. It feels like there's some play where you're like, damn, see what Marte Mapu just did? And we got it. We got a pass. I think 2 pass breakups because one was a drop pick. You had the interception, which again, more of an arm punt. I got to see again how bad of a decision it was from Josh Allen, but he still gets it. He forces a fumble that doesn't get recovered. Yeah, Jonathan Jones also forces a fumble, has that pass breakup in the end zone. Like Christian Ellis even showed really good discipline, not just running into the running back when Josh Allen tried to throw at his helmet. Same thing that Drake tried to do earlier, and it worked. Ellis, you could see him kind of pull up and put his hands up so he didn't just run into the guy. Thought that was really impressive. So I want to give those guys their flowers. That was something I knew would be difficult. I thought the Patriots had the edge in terms of receiving core versus coverage. Like I talked about Marte Mapu. I thought he could cover Dawson Knox, and I always get them confused. Dalton Kincaid. Dalton Kincaid. Well, both. I thought he could cover both because last season he did pretty well, and I thought we saw that again today. Now, the pass rush, I don't even want to give them a lot of crap. I thought Jeremiah Farms actually did flash today. Quiet day for Keon White. I think that may have had something to do with them giving him extra attention. We'll have to check. He did get out of the pocket, though, at times. Josh Allen didn't love that. But my beef was with the run defense, and I kind of already went into it, so I don't want to beat a dead horse or anything.
Nah, do it.
I mean, on the long run, the defensive line gets pushed back. Both the linebackers get blocked. Kyle Duggar's the only one who's free to make the tackle. He has a chance to bring James Cook down, doesn't do it, Cook's off to the races. Literally what we talked about pregame, right? I said, if you leave a big hole, he's going to house that thing for 60 yards. And how long was the run? Was it 50-something?
40-something. 46, I think.
Yeah, so I'm sorry. I overshot it by 14 yards, but that was literally because he did it against Detroit. And I'm like, oh my God, I can completely see that happening against the Patriots. I think it was on almost the exact same play. So that's disappointing, but it feels like Devon Gotcha and Anthony Jennings have to do a lot of the run defense on their own. So it feels like when they mess up, it just ends up being a catastrophe. Now, I don't think Jennings was bad in this game. I think he may have given up the edge a couple times, but I don't think he was really someone they necessarily had like a target on his back. But it just is hard to watch a Patriots run defense get run on like this. And I will also say, I know people always want to go to coaching. And part of it is because it looks like poor fundamentals. But I also think back to 2019. That was the last time the run defense really sucked. They weren't great in 2020. It was like 2021 they really started to get better when they got Godchaw and all that. But I remember 2019, I think it was because Bentley and I think Hightower, I think both got hurt. So Terez Hall had to play a ton. And they couldn't stop the run. And it was just like, you're not used to seeing this. But at some point, when you have so many injuries, like Peppers didn't play today, and that's another impact player against the run. Like Duggar, as we know, is basically on one ankle. Like this is not easy. You need a team effort for run defense because it literally takes one person screwing up for everything to collapse or for, one person to look like they did their job even worse. So again, that was the big reason I think this defense had trouble because I think the pass coverage for the most part was excellent. Josh Allen is an MVP candidate. He had a 67.3 passer rating. Obviously got hurt. He got sacked and looked like he landed on his hand.
Yeah.
Even before the injury, they were doing a really good job on the back end for the vast majority of the game. So kudos to the coverage, but that run defense, man, is tough to watch. I don't see how it gets better against the Chargers because they have an even better offensive line, I think, in a lot of spots. They're not going to give you that free pass. If they can get 3 yards of pop on you, they're damn well going to do it. And unless the Patriots get out to a fast lead and force the Chargers to throw on them, like even today, you saw the Bills could have run the ball more. They were down 14-0, but that was
They should have run the ball more, like you said.
They abandoned the run. It was a bizarre kind of tactic that they used, but it was what it was. So that's very discouraging. But at least the back end is going to do what they have to do, and you didn't have any big breakdowns, I think, in the coverage. So that was a plus that you got to give them credit for.
Yeah. All right, one more ad read here. We're going to hear from our newest sponsor on Patriots Postgame, Factor Meals, and then we're going to wrap it up with number 2 pick talk and any more questions, answers, thoughts from today's game before we wrap it up and get ready to come back again on Pat's Daily tomorrow for some more breakdown of this game. So let's hear from our new friends at Factor. That is not supposed to be like that, so please hold. There we go. Let's hear from our friends at Factor. Notice now that the days are shorter, but your to-do lists aren't. You got to power through these busy days, these busy winter days. It gets so dark out so early. And you can do so with Factor meals. There's no prep. There's no mess meals. From breakfast to dinner and anything in between, Factor has easy, nutritious options to keep you fueled and feeling your best. Whether you like routine or enjoy mixing things up, Factor has you covered with 35 different delicious meals every week with over 60 additional convenience options that you can add to your box, like keto cookies, pressed juices, smoothies, and more. So don't let these shorter days slow you down. Stay energized with America's #1 ready-to-eat delivery service. Factor's meals are chef-prepared, dietitian approved, and you're going to love not only how Factor's meals taste, but also how they support your goals. Factor is cheaper than takeout and dining out as well. I love my takeout. I love my pizza. I love my pizza Fridays, but sometimes you got to pull it back, and you can do exactly that with Factor meals. So if you want to get in on eating these yummy Factor meals with Taylor and I, head over to Factor Meals today. Go to factormeals.com/50postgame and use code 50postgame to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's code 50postgame at factormeals.com/50postgame. You get 50% off your first box plus free shipping while your subscription is active. Thank you to Factor for sponsoring the Patriots postgame show, and thank you to Taylor for dealing with me on my first Factor ad read. So
that was good. I think you did a good job. I wanted to go hungry.
Yeah, I know. Seriously. Well, we'll get off here 8:37, maybe a 9 o'clock Factor meal, throw one in the microwave. We'll see what happens when we get off here. But let's talk about the silver lining of this game, Taylor. You mentioned it. You tweeted it after I tweeted out the Tankathon standings. The Patriots own the second overall pick in the NFL draft if the season ended right now. So I know that you don't want to wish for losing. You don't want to wish for tanking. But I think the way today's game went is exactly how you want it to happen the rest of the season, where we come on this show, we tout Drake Maye. There's a couple mistakes. Mayo isn't throwing anyone under the bus, at least not yet. And it's just kind of like, you know what? We're right there. We just need a little bit more coaching help that we can get this offseason, and we can get a little bit more talent this offseason, and having the second overall pick helps that cause. So thoughts here, and I guess I'll ask you too. This is more of a mailbag question and not really a Patriots postgame centric question, but if they do have the second overall pick, that's also going to help them out with a potential trade back, where if you're sitting at number 3, in my opinion, I want Travis Hunter, but if you can get a lot more with the number 2 pick, because then there's other quarterback needy teams that are going to want to jump up and kind of get in there. You talk about the Raiders who won today, might be looking for a guy like Shadur Sanders or Cam Ward. So you might put yourself in a decent position if you can stay at the number 2 overall pick.
I want the trade down. I think the number 1 overall pick would be the best, because then that gives you the most capital, obviously, to move around. I go back and forth on what I want them to pick every day. I swear. Because
I know.
Especially, I was listening to Bootleg Football Podcast with Brett Coleman and EJ Snyder, 2 very good friends of the show. They do excellent work. And when they say something, I listen. For one, they pointed out something we kind of like touched around but didn't directly hit on this, where if Travis Hunter were to get hurt, you essentially lose 2 players, because you lose your big play offensive threat, and then you lose your starting corner. And his size is a concern. Like, the frame is a concern. You cannot deny that a corner under 190 pounds is not worrisome. A receiver or a corner, but especially, I think, a cornerback. So that kind of concerns me. Also, they talked about Kelvin Banks Jr. Brett Coleman said that last year he would have been the best tackle not named Joe Alt. So I'm saying, man, and I like Tet, but I've been watching Tet, and I think he's still got some areas he needs to improve in his game. I think he could be a starter, but I think he would have some like pretty significant growing pains still, especially if you try to make him your guy against man coverage. Kelvin Banks is the kind of guy where I think, one, you can get more capital, obviously. I don't think he's going to go in the top 5, probably on the back end of the top 10. But that's the kind of guy where you plug him in, you can play him from day one. He's only 20 years old right now. I think he's got a fiance and like a kid on the way. Like, he's super mature, very refined as a pass protector. His issue is more that he can't sustain run blocks consistently, but hopefully Scott Peters can help him with that. So I'm thinking if you can get that second pick, first pick, whatever, I'm praying that they can trade back, get some more capital, get your left tackle that you don't have to think about for the rest of Drake Maye's tenure, ideally. That's kind of what I'm thinking. So that's my thoughts on that. But also, one thing I just realized, we haven't heard a peep about Gerard Mayo's press conference.
No, I'm telling you. It was good
stuff. We're learning. That's a step forward in my book. I'm not overlooking that. I'm giving him maybe not giving him his credit, because he shouldn't have been putting his foot in his mouth anyway, but that's a sign of growth. That's a sign of learning from your mistakes. So I want to, give Gerard a little bit of credit there.
It is. I think the only questionable one was the answer to the punt, where he said it's a field position game, but it's not a questionable answer. That was his answer. It was a bad decision. That was why you did it. Sorry, I'm living with it. Like,
it's not like he brought up a past Super Bowl run that he didn't coach in.
Yeah, or throw his offensive coordinator completely under the bus for basically no reason. So
I still think that, I don't know why he said it, but I really don't think that was his intention. Just because it would be so out of left. I wouldn't say out of left field, because he kind of did that last year with the offense. Damn. I still don't really think he meant to throw AVP under the bus. But I think what he said was still dumb. I think both can be true. He was not intentionally throwing AVP under the bus, but he said something stupid where it was very easy to misinterpret or whatever.
I don't know if he was intentionally, or his intent was to throw him under the bus directly the way it came off. But I do think his answer was, yeah, I probably would have snuck it with him too. And then it just comes off as, you said it, I didn't. But I don't think he was aiming towards, again, this is a week old. We don't need to hash this out now that, but also, I get what you're saying.
And what was the deciding factor where Drake now has like 3 or 4 design runs after Wayne Pelt just said he didn't want him to get hurt? Like, I'm just curious, like, all right, then what was I would have been cool if he'd never done a design run all season. If that was your mentality, I'm like, yeah, I said the same thing when people got mad that if he gets hurt on a freak accident because of a design run, people are going to be pissed, and they have every reason to be pissed. And there's no way of explaining it away because it was a relatively meaningless game because you're not going to go to the playoffs, and you may have gotten him hurt, and obviously that would carry into maybe the next season. But he did it today multiple times, so I'm very curious.
Here's my thought on it. Reverse psychology. AVP knows they're listening to press conferences up there. We're never running Drake. We're not running Drake. So then when it does come down to the 3rd, 4th down, 4th and 1, you do sneak them. You sneak them out of the end zone when you get pinned down by the dumb play by Mapu in the end zone. I don't think they would have ran a play like that last week, but they did it with Maye today. And then, like you said, a couple zone reads here and there, short yardage, down to the goal line. They're not expecting it because literally 3 days ago, you just went up on a press conference and said, yeah, I'm not running him for the rest of the season, basically. So maybe a little reverse psychology from AVP. Maybe he just is in too deep in the press conferences like his head coach as well. But regardless, it works.
I apologize, Alex. I was not familiar with your game.
Exactly. So, all right. I think that's it here for Patriots postgame, Taylor. Do you have any other wrap-up thoughts before we get out of here? Again, they lose 24-21. They compete against the best team in the AFC East after a disaster last week where post-bye they come out absolute nightmare fuel in Arizona, and then they go on a second game on the road and they actually compete. So that's the long and short of it. There's obviously things to nitpick. Drake made ups and downs and things of that nature, some bad decisions. But my thought is overall, Gerard Mayo took a step forward, I think, in keeping his job because he actually had them ready to play in a game.
Yeah, I would go the same way. I think maybe my last thought would be on Jalen Polk and Javon Baker. I saw their names in the chat. It kind of reminded me of a tweet I sent off earlier today. I understand, and we've talked about this, I feel like, every week, but it was kind of another example where Drake throws to Javon Baker. They look like they're not on the same page at all. I know we want to see these young guys out there, and obviously learning in live bullets is the only way you can gain like actual experience. I get that. But you also need to consider the fact you have other mouths to feed who have earned the opportunities to be targeted. And you also want your quarterback to throw to people he's comfortable with. He has not looked comfortable to throwing to Jalen Polk or Javon Baker like at all during the regular season. So just for anybody who's like, oh, why don't they play the kids more? Why just Javon Baker, screw it, let him play. You can say that, but then then you basically are giving up a play because it's 2 players that aren't on the same page. And I would be very curious to know what goes on in practice because it sounds like they're doing well and it just doesn't translate to games. But when we talk about incorporating these young players, like there has to be some, like you got to pull the plug at some point if it's just hurting the rest of your team, because it's not fair to the guys that are out there, every player, most plays who are doing their job, for you to take them off the field for somebody who can't do theirs when they're out there. So that's maybe like my last thing. I can't think of anything else that we didn't cover.
All right. I want to throw this up. Do you agree with this? Our friend John Zanis just tweeted this. Drake Maye was the reason they lost today.
No. How was he the reason they lost?
I don't know. I'm curious. I wish John was on postgame. I want to know why he thinks this, but
I'm glad he's not, because I think I would end up having a headache again from getting too loud. We love John. We love John. So let me think of, bro, I don't know how you throw 4 incompletions and you're the reason the team lost. I'm sorry.
So I guess like from the nitpicks I had of Drake Maye.
Oh, I'm sorry, not 4, but yeah, I'm sorry.
I still don't think the nitpicks that I gave of Maye's game today, which was the drop snap, the sail to Hunter Henry on 3rd and 6, the interception, and some clock management stuff that I was worried about. I still don't think those are the reasons they lost the game.
And even the 3rd down to Hunter, I think he got contacted at the top and there was pressure from the right. So I think he was just trying to like get the ball out and be like, hey, either he's going to catch it or no one will. That one felt a little like it was not, because usually they're automatic on those. And I think that had a part to do with it. But yeah, I don't see how there's 3 turnovers. 1 you could maybe kind of put on Drake, but that was still an inexcusable screw up from 2 other players. And then the defense not being able to get the Bills off the ball towards the end, coaching decisions. Like, I'm sorry, I don't know what Drake Maye could have possibly done that puts him over like Ramondre Stevenson. I think Ramondre, if you're going to put it on one player, if you really want to concentrate it, how is it not Ramondre? Unfortunately.
I don't know. We'll have to ask John about it. We'll text him once we get off the show and tell him, explain yourself. State your source. We'll see what happens there. But all right. Well, that's it for us here on Patriots postgame. It was in the end disappointing to lose by 3, but they helped their draft status with loss and a Raiders win today. Drake Maye looks pretty good. Some stuff to improve on. Gerard Mayo makes a couple interesting coaching decisions, but at the end of the day, doesn't put his foot in his mouth and have the guys ready to play. And in the end, you're still 3-12. You're still building towards something. You still have a quarterback. And you get one day closer to getting your defense back healthy. Christian Barmore back healthy. Jawan Bentley back, hopefully with Christian Barmore. Jawan Bentley, Jabril Peppers, all those guys next season, and kind of can go into that. So 3-12, not a ton good to pull out of it, but not the nightmare that was last week. So we will continue on in the 2024 season here on Pat's Daily, Pat's Postgame, and Patriots Press Pass, and see where Drake and company continue to take us. So we will be back tomorrow with another episode of Patriots Daily. So make sure you rate, review, subscribe to this channel where we will break it down even further. Taylor's going to dive into the film, and we will take a look at what actually happened in this Patriots loss to the Bills. So, Taylor, any last thoughts before we get out of here? One more time.
Hopefully they keep growing. Just
good answer.
Competitive game against LA. Let's do it.
Love it. All right, sounds good. We will see you tomorrow. Thanks for watching. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other, and we will see you all next time again. Thanks for watching. We appreciate the interaction. Peace out, everyone. We'll see you soon.